Today's picks on my Best in Horror Countdown 2021 through 2022 looks at a pair of sequels to long-standing slasher movies. Having grown up in the 80s, I have a soft spot for slashers, especially sequels to slashers. Some think they're terrible rip-offs of long-dead properties, but occasionally, some of them are worth seeing. Here are two of them. This is M.L. Miller Fright's Best in Horror Countdown 2021 through 2022. Counting down the best in horror films released from October 1st, 2021 through September 30th, 2022. According to me, M.L. Miller. Here we go. Number 29. Halloween Kills was released on October 15th, 2021. It's streaming on Peacock and HBO Max. It's directed by David Gordon Green and written by David Gordon Green, Danny McBride, Scott Teems, from a story and characters by John Carpenter and Deborah Hill. After leaving Michael Myers, played by both James Jude Courtney and Nick Castle, to burn down in Laurie Strode's home, Strode, played by Jamie Lee Curtis, her daughter Karen, played by Judy Greer, and her granddaughter Allison, played by Andy Matichak, are shocked to find out Michael has escaped and continues his murder spree across Haddonfield. Meanwhile, the rest of the town, including survivors of Michael's original rampage, Tommy Doyle, played by Anthony Michael Hall, Lonnie Elam, played by Robert Longstreet, and returning from this 1978 original, Nurse Marion, played by Nancy Stevens, Lindsay, played by Kyle Richards, and retired Sheriff Brackett, played by Charles Cyphers, find out Michael is back and form a mob to track him down and kill him. Many people die. Okay, right off the bat, I have to say that David Gordon Green has outdone himself by making a Halloween film that is better than the 2018 film. While I really liked that film, Green delivered some moments of nonsense, including Michael's refusal to kill a child on his rampage, that one scene with Dr. Sartain, and I'm still not over the way the film ignores every other film but the original. But Halloween 2018 managed to deliver a valiant return to form for the shape we all know and love. It seems Green and his co-writers, Danny McBride and Scott Teems, had some time to actually evolve some of the characters they introduced in 2018, giving them somewhat logical paths to follow, and offering up some nice fan service by bringing back just about everyone who is still alive from the original film. On top of that, they delivered a surprisingly gory and brutal film with a high kill count and a whole lot of forward momentum to the story. Just to let all of you know, there will be spoilers ahead, so you've been warned. Let's get into the positives first. The film begins with an extended flashback that reintroduces us to two key characters that become crucial to Halloween Kills. We knew Officer Hawkins, played by Will Patton, had some grief about his run-in with Michael on Halloween night in 1978, but this flashback shows us why, with Kong Island's Thomas Mann playing a young Hawkins and his partner, played by the Wolf of Snow Hollow's Jim Cummings, encountering Michael at the Myers house. We also see Lonnie Elam, the bully from Tommy's class who trips him and smashes his pumpkin in the original, have his own Michael sighting as a kid, a moment that still haunts him to this day, where he is played by an actor who is becoming the George Buck Flower of our generation, Robert Longstreet. I know some were iffy about rumors of these flashbacks, but they really do flesh out the story and give motivation to two key characters. The flashback also uses movie magic to shockingly bring back Donald Pleasance as Dr. Loomis. While it's not perfect, this CG rendering of the beloved actor actually looks pretty solid, and it felt great to see Loomis in a Halloween movie again. The pace of Halloween Kills is quite frantic from beginning to end. This is the middle jog of Green's Halloween trilogy, and the action comes fast and furious. There are a significant number of kills, but instead of simply introducing characters and then offing them, Green takes the time giving what would be throwaway roles to some recognizable actors like The Righteous Gemstones' Scott MacArthur, Mad TV's Michael McDonald, and comedian Larry Clark, to give the small roles character and some memorable scenes. Green also does something interesting by building these scenes that would normally just up the kill count with tension and then cutting away to the main characters doing their thing. This makes the murders running almost as a subplot to the film. its own mini-movie with a beginning, middle, and end. This is most evident with MacArthur and MacDonald's scenes that play out almost like a short film within the movie itself. Once again, it makes the kills feel more significant by making the victims actual characters instead of notches on a headboard. As I said before, Halloween Kills is quite brutal. While the original is relatively bloodless, this one makes up for it big time. It deviates from the original in this sense, but definitely will quench the blood-hungry fans of the films that followed the 1978 original. Tossed out the window are the quiet scenes where Michael is lingering in the background only to emerge and kill. There's very little subtlety here. While Carpenter's original was a slow and silent emergence of evil from the darkness, Green's film screams right in your face. I'm not complaining about it, I'm just noticing the difference between the approach of the two directors. Still, Michael's slashes spatter blood in all directions, and it was pretty great to see Michael unleashed like that. I haven't mentioned Jamie Lee Curtis's performance so far, mainly because despite what the posters will tell you, she's really not a significant part of Halloween Kills. Sure, she's there and serves as a touchstone for Karen, Allison, Tommy, and Hawkins, but for the most part, she's pretty banged up from the last film, and I think it was a smart move to save Laurie's moment for the third installment, Halloween Ends. Still, she has a great conversation with Hawkins in the hospital where he puts her in her place and tells her that Michael isn't after her at all. It's the moment that really highlights Strode's obsession with Michael and how deep her PTSD runs. Michael's seemingly random and unfocused way of killing is once again highlighted. Laurie is nothing but another person to kill. It'll be interesting to see where Green is taking this when Laurie and Michael come face to face next time. I like the way Michael looked in Halloween Kills. The mask definitely has a lot of wear and tear, but it still seems to work its magic. Green is able to light it so that it looks menacing in every scene. The power of the mask is once again hinted at, as Michael seems different when the mask comes off. Don't worry, we see just about as much of Michael's face as we do in 2018, but this time, having survived being burned, his face seems to be much more like a shape than ever before. Thankfully, Green continues to film maskless Michael in creatively shadow and obscured ways. I still would love to see Green come to some conclusion that the mask itself might be the cause of all of the killing, and that there might be a silver shamrock chip in there somewhere. But that's just my fan theory. The one thing Green puts special attention to is Michael's connection with his sister and her room. While not explained, his motivations for killing are hinted at. It's vague, it's open-ended, but this little detail was the biggest contribution to the Myers mythos of the whole film. Alright, it's time for some criticism. While I think it was a nice move to split up Laurie, Karen, and Allison for this one, the motivation wavered at times. All of a sudden, Karen takes interest in a man who is mistaken for Michael Myers and attempts to save him from an angry mob. This concern comes out of the blue, and sure, it gives Karen something to do, distracting her from looking over Allison for her to leave with Lonnie and her ex-boyfriend Cameron, played by Dylan Arnold, but this sequence really only served as filler to pad out the film. I get it, this scene was to show how Michael has affected the town and how brutal and mindless the mob really is. But as nicely filmed as the sequence is, it goes on for too long and feels unnecessary. I also think Allison forgives Cameron way too quickly. This motherfucker was flirting with another girl and then had the nuts to toss her phone into the punch bowl. He got off way too easily, in my book, for those unforgivable shenanigans. I understand why the film didn't linger on the teenage strife, as Allison has bigger problems at the moment and most likely falls back into the arms of Cameron since he is a familiar and up to that night intimate acquaintance. Still, he at least deserved a jack slap or two right across his baby face. It's good to see that Michael isn't as forgiving. Laurie Strode still seems to know way too much about Michael's motivations, even after she is course-corrected by Hawkins that she is not Michael's focus. She's given really rough lines like, Michael is transcending and gaining power with every kill. While this seems to be true, there's no way for her to know any of this. Basically, it's just some shit for Laurie to say so that it reminds folks that she's still part of the film. In all honesty, Karen and Tommy are more central characters here. And while Judy Greer and Anthony Michael Hall are pretty great in their roles, I feel the lines where they're given something important and powerful to say, along with Laurie's, could have benefited from another pass in the scripting stage so that they don't feel so clunky. But my main complaint about the film is the ending, and if you don't want that spoiled, stop watching now. I think Green did an extremely good job moving all of the chess pieces to culminate in a non-ending with some solid ramifications. We all know Halloween Kills isn't the last film, and having it seem like Michael had once again died would have been redundant and pointless. Still, there are some basic logistics that I feel could have been simplified in order for the ending to work much better. As the mob descends on Michael, Tommy tells Karen to go back and take care of Allison. Instead, she saves and has her moment to stab Michael. All Green had to do was have Karen leave before that, leaving Michael to battle and defeat the mob, only to show up to the Myers home in his room for the final moments. Instead, after Michael gets away from the mob, there are police and medics at the home, and Karen somehow is allowed to walk past cops and medics into an active crime scene with dead bodies everywhere to be alone in Judith Myers' room. This lapse in logic and easy fix really annoyed me as it put a bad taste in my mouth in the final moments. The ending is decent, but it could have been amazing had Allison and Karen been alone at the Myers home instead of surrounded by authorities. It's a head-slapper of an end, and it didn't need to be there. That said, Halloween Kills is better than 2018, scores better than Rob Zombie's Catastrophes, and most of the other films of the franchise. While it lacks the subtlety of the original, it's a fantastic modern take on the franchise that will never die. I wish they would have gone a little easier on the soundtrack. It would have been great to hear a bare-bones synth score rather than the orchestral bangs and clatters. Hell, I'd have even settled for the string version of the classic running throughout that showed up in the trailer. But all of these negative criticisms are nitpicks. I was entertained. I love the series. I feel Halloween Kills really hasn't betrayed that love. One could only wish that the Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, and Texas Chainsaw Massacre series could be treated with such respect from the same level of talent behind Halloween Kills. Sure, it's not perfect. That was done in 1978. But Halloween Kills is a damn fine installment. If not worth noting today is another slasher that really surprised me when I first saw it. And while films with messaging often bore me to tears, this one goes meta with the message and ends up making fun of everyone in the process. This makes for one fun movie that honors the original and pushes the story into today. Slumber Party Massacre was released on October 16th, 2021. It's streaming on Sci-Fi and available to rent on Amazon Prime from Shout Studios and Blue Eyes Productions. It's directed by Danishka Esterhazy and written by Suzanne Keeley. Beginning in 1993, Slumber Party Massacre starts with a group of gals taking a vacation in a cabin in the woods, cooking brownies, having pillow fights, and dancing in their nighties, like you do when you're having a slumber party, and about to be massacred. Soon, a driller killer named Russ Thorne, played by Rob Van Buren, shows up and kills them with the drill. The lone survivor of that night, Trish, played by Masali Baduza, gets out with a hole in her hand and a lot of mental issues. Issues that she carries to this present day where her own daughter, Dana, played by Hannah Gonera, plans a weekend trip with her girlfriends to a remote location for brownies, pillow fights, nighties, yada yada. Through a series of extreme coincidences, the gals end up in the same cabin, and wouldn't you know who comes knocking on the door with a mechanized drill but Russ Thorne, back for more massacring. Slumber Party Massacre is a good, clean, fun film, despite itself. It's definitely self-aware and full of social commentary that is spot on the nose. It's got lines that address toxic masculinity, male gaze, female empowerment, and the whole ball of feministic wax. But just as the original Slumber Party Massacre was written as a feminist reaction to slasher films, this one manages to actually be funny and entertaining. All of the "you go girl" isms are done with a tongue firmly in cheek. It's as much laughing at the ultra-feminism as it is overpowering masochistic cliches that populate the horror genre. Yes, there are scenes where the male members of the cast bumble around and end up getting killed, but it's done so in such a ridiculous manner that you can't help but laugh. I mean, it's got a male pillow fight in tighty whities and two guys named, well, Guy 1 and Guy 2. Details like this will make the most butthurt of anti-feminists crack a smile. It's smart humor. I'm not saying it's genius, but it does laugh at itself and know mostly everything in the film is ridiculous. And the gals in this are ridiculous too. They're supposed to be the most capable of the bunch, but they do some of the stupidest things as well. Writer Suzanne Keeley and director Danishka Esterhazy do something that is almost unheard of in this day and age. They don't play one side against the other in order to make their point. All sides get poked fun at. The girls, who are supposed to be tough and ready for action at any moment, are thrown for a loop once the shit goes down. While they're supposed to be pushing a tough gal who takes no business from a man attitude, some of them melt into a puddle when they see the guys without their shirts. They get distracted and end up being just as much fallible players as the guys are against the unstoppable killer with the drill. And it's downright refreshing to see these directors spread the tragedy and reveal the basic truth that at the end of the day, we're all fucking idiots. Slumber Party Massacre has some surprisingly decent gore. I guess you'd have to with the drill as a main weapon. It's also acted really well, with all of the cast displaying some great comic timing. This is a film that heavily relies on the comedy and also relies on everyone to get the stick out of their asses that's been lodged there for the past 5 years. It's a film that still manages to be pretty thrilling and it's sometimes scary. Rob Van Buren is surprisingly effective as the creeper Russ Thorne, especially when he murmurs in a high voice, "I love you." This isn't a film that sets out to save the world. It just takes the status quo of horror films and turns it on its ear and laughs at it. It's not meant to be taken seriously, and those who angrily stand up and applaud this film for being a feminist achievement or boo it for being woke trash are missing the point. Slumber Party Massacre is a silly film that sets out to be fun, and I thought it accomplished that goal with honors. Fans of the Slumber Party Massacre series will have some fun Easter eggs to enjoy. There's a certain guitar that shows up, and there are all kinds of nods to the original. But even though this really is more of a vacation than a slumber party, it's still goofy fun. There are hot gals, buff dudes, lots of gore, and a weirdo with a drill. There's even a cool nail gun scene for you nail gun massacre buffs out there. If you check out your preconceived notions about dueling sides of discourse for the moment, and want to simply watch a fun, popcorny horror film, Slumber Party Massacre should be in your queue immediately. As always, feel free to agree, disagree, or give me your own picks for your favorite horror movies. It's October, so let's talk horror. Come back tomorrow for the next level in the Best in Horror Countdown 2021 through 2022. Be sure to hit all of the pertinent bells and whistles down below, and you'll never miss a post. Happy Halloween, folks.